World War I was supposed to be the war to end all wars. Obviously, it wasn't. It was one of the most brutal and destructive wars ever in human history. It involved more than 60 nations. It directly led to World War II, as well as a host of other problems. Today we're going to be looking at the causes of World War I, specifically the rise of Germany. We're going to start with a conflict that happened in the late 1800s, which resulted in the defeat of France and the beginning of Germany's rise to power. This was the Franco-Prussian War, which lasted from 1870 to 1871. This war had basically two effects. Number one, it created a unified Germany, which then set about expanding itself. And number two, as a direct result of the first consequence, it destabilized the balance of power in Europe because Germany was now a consolidated power. The reason why the Franco-Prussian War was fought was so that Germany, which was actually 39 separate Germanic states, the two of the largest of which were called Austria and Prussia, began to want to consolidate their power, specifically the state of Prussia. Its main objective was to consolidate into a new German state and assert themselves as the dominant Germanic state instead of Austria. This war, which saw the defeat of France, also saw a severe humiliation of France. Additionally, this war also saw the effectiveness of modern technology in warfare and the need for rapid movement of supplies and troops, which would have a direct effect on future wars. The terms for France after this defeat were extremely severe. They had to pay a huge amount of money in reparations, and they also lost territory, such as Alsace-Lorraine. Obviously, this led to severe political and socioeconomic problems for France, which then fed the seeds for a desire for revenge against Germany. For Germany, this war had very important consequences. It did achieve its objective of consolidating into one major new German state, which was now going to become a major player on the world scene. They also undermined France's position of power. And obviously Germany now had the potential to be dominant across the continent of Europe and worldwide. They also showed that the importance of modern warfare was going to continue to be significant in conflicts down the road. Germany's government was a democratic monarchy with an authoritarian rule between two main leaders, a Kaiser, like a king, and a chancellor. The chancellor at this time in Germany was a man named Otto von Bismarck. His motto was blood and iron, which kind of tells you right there what his desires were for his people, his country. In the 30 years after the Franco-Prussian War, Germany had become the strongest industrial power in Europe, rivaling that of Great Britain even. And with that was also a population explosion, which led to a large number of working class individuals in the cities and a growing middle class. This had positive and negative consequences for Germany. Positively, it could mean that the economy of Germany could grow stronger. Negatively, there were socioeconomic tensions between this working class and this new middle class. As the German economy and population grew, there was more and more pressure to secure an international empire for Germany. And this led Germany to pursue the same objectives as other European powers, which were the development and expansion of an overseas empire. They had to be a little cautious at first, seeing that they were a new power on the European stage, and other major European powers had already carved up the globe, specifically Africa and Asia. Britain's empire was traditionally the strongest and viewed as the most important empire among the European powers. So Germany's desire to create a new empire for itself would obviously cause tensions, especially with the British. By the early 1900s, Britain was already experiencing a bit of a decline. Not only had it been taken over with its industrial output by the United States, Germany was now a direct threat to them as well. They also had issues with maintaining their overseas empire. They had traditionally had the strongest navy in Europe for quite some time, and they depended on this navy to defend itself against an attack and to defend its sea-based trade routes. Its empire was extremely vast, with colonies in Africa and in Asia, and because of this, their resources were quite overstretched. Their traditional rivals in Europe had been France and Russia, but now it began to be extremely suspicious of the rise of the Germans. So for Britain, its primary objective was to maintain the balance of power that had already been in place. And in order to do so, instead of being isolated, they started to look for alliances which would help them maintain their position. But Germany was a serious threat to that objective. So we've talked a little bit about Otto von Bismarck, who had been the Chancellor of Germany at the Franco-Prussian War. He was known obviously for his motto of blood and iron, but he was also known for his secretive dealings and a web of alliances that he had created among the powers of Europe. Examples of these alliances can be found on pages 13 and 14 of the textbook, including the Three Emperors League, the Dual Alliance, the Three Emperors Alliance, the Triple Alliance, and the Reinsurance Treaty. It's important for you to look at each of these treaties and to figure out which countries were bound together within each. The significance of these alliances and treaties was that it bound countries together and pitted European powers against each other so that Germany could get the best position in the end. The other part of Germany's government power was under the Kaiser. The first ruler or first Kaiser of Germany was Kaiser Wilhelm I. He and Chancellor Otto von Bismarck were not directly aggressive in your face with their foreign policy. However, beginning in 1888, there was a new Kaiser who came to power, Wilhelm II, and a new chancellor in 1890, which was named Leo von Caprivi. These two men would now set Germany on a new course in its foreign policy that would pretty much overturn the secretive alliances that Otto von Bismarck had created over the years. And with this came a new idea for Germany called Weltpolitik, which is German for world policy. The goal of this was to make Germany a colonial power with an overseas empire and a navy. And also this new policy would divert the German people's attention away from socioeconomic problems, such as the rift between the working class and the new middle class. Obviously, this Weltpolitik would definitely have an impact on Germany's relationship with other European powers and basically make the continent of Europe become more and more tense because other countries in Europe saw Germany as a threat to what they had already obtained. They did not want to give these up. So the rise of Germany, with its defeat of France in 1871, its population explosion, its huge economic growth, and then commitment to build Germany into a world power through producing individuals in the country that were better educated in science and math, and therefore could help create a greater military power, would all work together to achieve this Weltpolitik. Germany continued to have a strong authoritarian rule as its leaders progressed in the years prior to World War I.